What did Chase Glasser see in Katin Houser's first start in Piscataway? Also, a few other mailbag questions like what is the point of doing motion before snap? And then, yeah, well, we'll do it. We'll talk about this weekend's game a little bit more. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege, all one word, for a first deposit match up to $100. Spartan friends, Spartan family, hey, even you Wolverines out there, that's right, coming together as one big, happy, and loving family on this rivalry week, a game that we can't wait for. Catch the fever, Chase. It's going to be anything can happen. Oh, boy. Whatever. Hey. How's it going over there, Chase?
Doing great.
Illustrated.com. We doing okay over there? Okay.
Doing great.
Good.
Doing great. Yeah.
Because whether people know it or not from previous chats, or hey, right now you're incognito. You're wearing green and white right now. Representing Spartans Illustrated. So people might not know this, but you are Michigan State fans' favorite Walmart Wolverine, who does have a degree from Michigan, but we won't let that get in the way of conversation. But how is it from your end though, on the Michigan side of things here? Are you revved up, amped up for this game, or is this even weird for people in your neck of the woods here?
I mean, it's weird, but I think there's a generational thing, right? So my first memory of football, really, I vaguely remember the 2006 Michigan-Ohio State game, and then my football consciousness really kicks in with App State. So that kind
perfect
of
timing.
Nice. General time frame in which I've existed as a football fan. So it's I think there's a generational divide with my generation versus maybe my parents or people who saw, because I think from 1969 until 2007, Michigan only lost to State 9 or 10 times.
Yeah.
And then in my generation, it's been substantially more than that within my lifetime alone. Right. So
yeah.
It's always a big deal for me. I think it's one of the very great rivalries in college football. But it's got a kind of a weird vibe this year, just because I don't think it's necessarily the matchup we thought we were going to get. But it's here, and I certainly probably hope to enjoy it. But
yeah. So we're going to start talking with last week's game and kind of tie it into this upcoming game against Michigan here. And we're going to narrow it down to one player here, Katin Houser. He made his first start at quarterback in Piscataway here, and it was a cold, rainy day. And I don't know, for the people on YouTube, I don't know if you're seeing the team ticker sign behind me. That's right, new sponsor. But 93% chance of rain here. We're going to see a lot of the same weather that we did last week. And let's just go right to the mailbag here. I put it up on the forums of SpartansIllustrated.com. Hey, Chase is going to hop on. Any questions you have? Dr. Green and White writes in, what was Chase's impression of Katin Houser in his first start in, quote, real action? We, of course, talked about this after the game, just myself, a little bit with Maxwell earlier this week. I thought that it was everything you could expect out of Katin Houser. I think it was more good than bad, especially given the conditions with the weather, of course. And yes, there were a few dropped interceptions, but again, young quarterback. This is a redshirt freshman. This isn't like a fifth-year senior. We don't have the highest of expectations yet for him. He does have a very high ceiling, but that's just where I stood. Chase, very interested to see where you stand on Katin Houser's first start.
I thought it was fine. He was generally decisive, had a plan with what he was going to do with the football, seemed to get through his reads fine, and made some really good throws. That first touchdown pass was excellent. Out of a three-man concept to the boundary, and to fit that in there, +1 to Montori Foster for holding on through some pretty substantial contact. But that was a great throw. And then he had another touchdown pass, which was good, and he just put it where it needed to be. Generally, I think the offensive architecture was not anything that was overly stressful for him. I think they largely avoided the middle of the field, except for his 2 touchdown passes. And he generally didn't put the ball in harm's way, and ran the ball quite a bit too, which I know Kim was touted as a runner, but this was very much a design part of his game. He had a touchdown rush against Washington. He was active on the zone reads, having an 11-on-11 run game. That's something I've always been a huge fan of. They just ran a straight inside zone for a 3rd and 2 conversion, in which it was just a quarterback keeper all the way. And then he scored on a draw and had 2 touchdown passes, no picks. That's fantastic. I have some questions about the arm strength Far as there was a couple, I thought when he was throwing out routes, it floated a little bit.
I noticed that too. Yeah, and I couldn't tell if that was like a rain thing, like is the ball slick or whatever, or am I just trying to talk myself into that being a thing or what? But yeah,
it looked absolutely miserable in Piscataway. And I guess we'll see this week. If he floats an out route like that, you're going to have, a bunch of people taking a picture on your sideline. And they're not dumb. They know that. And I got to think with someone of his profile, that's probably not a huge concern. If it is, it'll become readily apparent if he doesn't have the arm to make those throws. But that was really kind of the main concern that I have. There's going to be picks. There's going to be missed reads. There's going to be just kind of the general stuff that comes with having a young quarterback, and that's okay. I'm not too terribly worried about that. As far as what that means long term, I think people can take solace in the fact that if things go wrong, okay, well, we're taking our lumps with a guy who is a redshirt freshman, not someone who's in their third or fourth year with the program. So, I think it's going to be probably fine. I think he did everything that was asked of him reasonably well, and you can take solace in the fact that you've got a pretty good quarterback going forward.
Is there anything that you think they could do this upcoming week, like as quick of a turnaround as 1 week to the next, to help him a little bit, like a little more play action, or maybe even using his legs a little bit more, and not just on that 4th and 1 where they didn't use their 6'4", 230-pound quarterback? I'm not going to do another 4th and 1 play calling episode for the 8th straight week here, but do you think there's anything they could do just like that to help Katin coming up this weekend?
The best thing, and we can get into this a little bit more when we talk about Michigan specifically, the best thing that you can do to build a quarterback's confidence is just give him easy throws. And I think there will be times when those are there against Michigan, especially just kind of in the hook curl. So a little bit outside of each of the tight ends, where a tight end would be on either side of the field. Michigan has been a little leaky in zone coverage there. Now, it's one of the more galling things I've ever seen, in that those leaks are there because primarily Michigan is, in every game so far, I said this, I think, on the message boards, they've been practicing their Ohio State defense, which is the benefit of not playing anybody until eventually. So that'll be there. I think there will be easy throws there. If you can scheme it up, Malik Carr, if he's able to be active the way he was in the early going against Iowa, where Kim was really hitting him. I think he had 6 receptions before he got hurt, where he would just run and sit down in the zone and just hit him, just build that rhythm. That's going to be good. In the spring, Michigan State showed a lot of running back receiving action out of the backfield. If you can hit Michigan playing soft and just get free yards there. Tom Brady had a substantial portion of his career when he didn't have an actionable running game, and he was just able to hit little flare routes out of the backfield and really supplement the offense with that. So just easy things like that. Obviously, having a running game is going to be important. So yeah, just things like that. And if they can limit turnovers, then that'd be great.
There we go. And we're going to hit on 2 other mailbag questions that were dropped in the forum here. One on the offensive line, because we hinted at this a little after the game, but it looked a little better, but were our eyes deceiving us? Let's get Chase's expert opinion on this, and then also pre-snap motion, all that good stuff. But first, Chase, I'm sorry I need to send you to the bench over here because I need to talk to people's ears off about PrizePicks, the best daily fantasy sports app out there. Gang, look, you've heard me talk about this time and time again when it comes to PrizePicks. They truly enhance all the game day experiences, even for the game days you don't really care about, like Thursday Night Football, Saints Jaguars. I'm sorry, I have a really hard time getting out of bed to watch that game. However, with their daily fantasy games, that's right, it's going to keep you glued to the couch and glued to the game as well. Here's what I have on my PrizePicks card for Thursday Night Football. Taysom Hill over 0.5 passing yards. Brandon McManus more than 1.5 field goals. Derek Carr over a half interception. And Lou Hedley less than 4.5 punts. That's $5 to win $50 on PrizePicks. PrizePicks offers weekly promotions that can lead up to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value. And also, hey, to make it easy on your deposits as well, they offer Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account for this football season. And speaking of easy deposits, well, what makes it easier than just more money into your account? Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code LOCKEDONCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. That's right. I'll say that again. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code LOCKEDONCollege for a first deposit match up to $100 on prizepicks.com. It's PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, you might know this sign behind me. And if you're on the podcast, well, I'm going to explain it to you. You guys have all seen the countdown to game day signs, right? They're hanging up in sports bars, your basement, whatever. It's that sign, but juiced up with way more steroids. I just mentioned earlier this show. This shows the weather forecast for this weekend's game. Right behind me right now is showing U.S. women's soccer stats. They got stats, projections, schedules, rankings for all the sports Michigan State is involved in. And my God, that sounds like a lot going on. But it's so easy to set up. I am a caveman when it comes to technology. It took me maybe a minute or two to set up. So easy. And best of all, guys, hardly anyone has these yet. This is a new company at teamticker.com. You will be one of the first State fans to have this up in your man cave, your bar, your garage, wherever the heck you want to set this thing. And it's coming at a great time for the holiday season. Go to teamticker.com and use my promo code LOCKEDON, and that's going to get you $50 off of your sign up until the end of October. Again, Team Ticker is the one-of-a-kind sports sign from now until the end of October. If you go to teamticker.com and use that promo code LOCKEDON, all one word, you're going to receive $50 off your Team Ticker purchase. Again, that is teamticker.com. And let's drag Chase Glasser, Spartans Illustrated, back on to the show here. And let's talk about that offensive line, a group that we've been very critical of so far this season, more so for the run game than the pass protection. But I digress. In the end, a little underwhelmed with them. Now another question comes from the forum here. Was it my imagination, or was MSU's offensive line better against Rutgers, at least in the first half? Did you see a little bit of growth there from our Spartans over there in Piscataway?
Certainly. I think Nathan Carter did fine. Not quite the productive day I'm sure he was looking for, but there was avenues there where I think the run was blocked up decently well against a pretty salty defensive front. And then in pass pro, the biggest thing that you can do for a young quarterback on the offensive line is just protect him. And they largely did. And that's something that this offensive line is graded out reasonably well at, going back to last year, even when it was, I think, a little bit worse of an offensive line. I think PFF would agree with me. That they were still solid in pass pro, and that's continued. I think you're seeing some of that cohesiveness, and some of the substitution patterns I thought were a little interesting. I think by week 7, just take your best 5 and you got to stick with them a little bit. But at the same time, I think that rotation was something that's really benefited Michigan State in the past. In 2021, the ability to just continually rotate fresh offensive linemen and coach up people when you were rotating them out was a huge reason why MSU was able to get the success that they did. And particularly that played a huge role in their win over Michigan, because they were able to keep them pinned on the field while still rotating. And then Michigan would try to match that rotation, and Michigan State was just better at it. And that was a huge factor there. So there's a time and a place for it. But I think when you're really kind of ripped down to the studs, you don't have a coach. You have this kind of turmoil. Run with your best 5. But yeah, I think it's safe to say that they were a little bit better.
And let's go, sticking to the offensive side here with another mailbag question. This is from MSU_Hutch at SpartansIllustrated.com. Point blank, Chase, can you discuss the pros and cons of using motion? Something that I'm not sure Michigan State uses enough of, but who cares about my opinion? Just what does it give an offense here before the snap begins?
Yeah, so there's pre-snap motion, and then there's motion that will flow into something post-snap. So with pre-snap motion, I think the biggest advantage of it is that you can identify what the defense is in. Normally, you're going to motion either a tight end, but more often a slot receiver from one side of the formation to the other. And if somebody goes with them, then you're going to know, okay, they're in man, at least underneath. If you see the safeties split, okay, I'm thinking cover 2, cover 4, maybe like a cover 6. And if you see maybe one safety rotate down and one safety rotate up, you're thinking, okay, maybe they're in cover 1 or cover 3. So it helps you identify kind of what the coverage is and give you a little bit of a pre-snap read on what that looks like. Post-snap, so Michigan State did this against Iowa, where they ran, I think, Tyrell Henry from the boundary in an orbit motion. So coming and then going behind the quarterback and then out into the opposite flat. And when he was just off the quarterback's backside hip, the ball was snapped, and they were able to get the ball to him in stride to a place on the field where Iowa was still rotating their safeties over. So for that moment in time, Michigan State had a numbers advantage. So that's the benefit of it post-snap, is that you can get a numbers advantage. You can try to maybe get somebody in space. That's a big thing, taking someone from the boundary to the field. So those are some of the advantages. As far as the cons, you got to make sure you do it right, because you see about once every season, someone's coming in motion and the center snaps the ball right into them, and it's a huge fiasco.
Without fail. Yeah, right.
Yeah, so you got to make sure you're doing it right. You have to make sure, if your team is disorganized, you need to make sure you don't have too many people in the backfield. You have to make sure that you don't have 2 men in motion. So there's some organizational problems that can arise if you don't do it right. But largely, I'd say the benefits largely outweigh the negatives.
And it's not like arena football where you could just have like a straight line head start. But I mean, famously, like I'm using the most popular example here. We've seen Tyreek Hill, just motion across the line, but that is used as a slingshot to give him a running start, so to speak, to develop plays too. So see that up and down.
You can also do what Ohio State does. They call it zipper motion or return motion, where someone like a wide out split wide motions into the slot, and then on the snap zips into the open space that they've already vacated. They use that in the low red zone a lot.
That's a fun one too. That's a good rendition of it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this game, I guess, Chase, because it's happening. It's inevitable, just like many things in life. Look, Michigan has had, and I'm going to use this half joke, half serious. They've had a 7-week preseason coming up this year. To this game. How much have you really been able to take away, or is there something that you are looking for specifically in this game when it comes to Michigan's this personnel against Michigan State's this personnel? Is there anything that's arching the eyebrow for you when it comes this weekend, or is it just such a mismatch where you're this is just another preseason game?
I mean, well, I think that the big key here is, it's no secret, Michigan is one of the very best teams in the country. I think what makes them the most impressive is the diversity of run concepts that they use. They run inside zone, they run duo, where they're just going to blast your defensive tackles back and then let the running back pick a hole. They're going to run split zone, which Michigan State runs, where you have a tight end kicking out the backside. And then as a counter to that, they run pin and pull, where it looks a lot like power. They're probably one of the best teams in the country at running power. They run counter a lot. And then last week they threw in a crack sweep. They started running wind back, a designed cutback that Michigan State used a lot with Kenneth Walker. They've run outside zone a little bit. And then down G, just a quick hit, short pull of a guard on the play side. So they will just mess with you all sorts of ways with a really big physical offensive line and a couple very efficient, if not overly explosive backs. They have been extremely efficient. But if you look at the game last year, 29-7, that's not an overwhelming blowout, right? And why was that? Well, they had to kick, I think, 5 field goals.
Yeah.
Well, that's the matchup. It's can Michigan State hold them in the red zone to field goals? Because last year, I think Michigan scored on 7 of 9 offensive possessions. So you're going to want to see Michigan State bow up in the red zone and try to force those field goals. And then offensively, it gets really tricky. I do think, you can hit some spots underneath the zone. You may be able to get some 50-50 balls, especially on a second corner, Josh Wallace. But Michigan has extremely good safeties, and 2 of their 3 main underneath secondary players are excellent, with Mike Sanderstill and Will Johnson. Will Johnson pretty much erased Jalen Naylor as a true freshman. And Keon Coleman is no longer here, and he was most of Michigan State's offense last year until a safety got for him. So offensively, it becomes difficult to see them scoring more than probably 17 points, which would be by some margin the most points scored on Michigan so far this year. But there is an opponent caveat on that too. They're a very good team. They're a very disciplined team, but there is an opponent caveat there because they haven't played anybody. And I fully expect this to be a game, at least for the first quarter, first half. If Michigan jumps up 21-0, then it's going to get really ugly. But I would imagine that they're going to get Michigan State's best shot here. So that's, it's a tall task, but you got to limit the bleeding. They're going to move the ball. If you can create some turnovers, obviously that's always hugely important. All the better. But I put a post up, I think it's in my column, about throwing the records out, and I don't really agree with that notion. And frankly, I think it devalues a lot of what Michigan State accomplished in the height of the Mark D'Antonio era, where if you go back and look at upsets in this rivalry based on who was the better team after the season, right? Not taking away your preseason biases of
yeah, right.
This team's overrated, which happens quite frequently with Michigan, and especially in the recent past. The 2001 game stands out as an upset. And then the 2021 game is an upset, but only because Michigan was able to go and beat Ohio State and win the Big Ten. Those teams were fairly evenly matched in a way that they aren't this year. The better team wins this game. And the reason Michigan State dominated the rivalry and from that like 8-year period was not because necessarily they cared more, though I think they did, or because they just wanted it more. It was because they had excellent football teams. And they had an excellent football team in 2021 that won. And in 1990, even that number one versus no one, that was a team that wound up co-Big Ten champions. Like, that was a good Michigan State team.
Right.
So, I mean, I think the better team wins this game. And I think there's not a whole lot of ambiguity about who's the better team this year, who's the more complete team. And I don't really see a scenario in which Michigan State loses, or in which Michigan State wins.
I was going to say, all right, now we're talking here. Nice.
But I do think that it could be a more competitive game, especially for large swaths of it than some believe.
Okay. As we get further in the week, we're chipping away at positive notes like that. Like, hey, competitive first half. And by the time that we record Friday's episode, it'll be, here's 15 reasons why Michigan State's going to win on Saturday. So, you know how it goes here.
Paul Fanson had a piece up on Spartans Illustrated about reasons for optimism. And, that's I think a worthy read. It's just, you never know, but you kind of do.
Yeah. We will be talking more about this game because why not? 'Tis the season, it is rivalry week. But first, I'm sorry, Chase, I got to send you to the bench again because I need to talk to people's ears off about Jace Medical. That's right. We're going Chase to Jace right here. Jace Medical, JASE, wants to hook you up with the Jace case. They want to make sure it is in your house, especially during all these uncertain times. You never know when disaster is going to strike. You never know when the supply chain is going to crap out again. They want to set you up with the Jace case. And what that is 5 life-saving antibiotics that you can stash in your house, your RV, your boat, your car. Hey, if you're going to travel abroad, or even if you're just going to travel to the other side of the state, pack the Jace case with you, because who wants to mess around with finding a doctor that you can use your health insurance on and then understand? It'd be a whole to-do. With the Jace case, it makes it super duper easy, gang. They are also continually working on expanding their medication offerings. In their most recent efforts, they added ivermectin as an option in the Jace case as well. And hey, 'tis the season too. It is the holiday season. Buy a gift card for the family or the loved one so they can get a Jace case of their own. Now, how to get the Jace case and also save on it? Well, go to jacemedical.com and enter promo code LOCKEDON, all one word, at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. Again, that's jacemedical.com and enter promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That is promo code LOCKEDON at jasemedical.com. And let's get Chase back to the stage here. That's right. Here's not an X's and O's question at all, or maybe it is. I'll let you decide this, but I've been wondering this myself over here in the Michigan State side of things, is what would the lead in the fourth quarter have to be for me to think that Michigan State is going to win this game? Because unfortunately, we just saw an 18-point lead against Rutgers melt away. Chase, I'm starting to think it has to be like a 35-point lead to start the fourth quarter for my mind to even enter the realm of thinking that they could pull this win off. But what would the fourth quarter have to start with for you to start getting a little nervous over there in Michigan land?
I mean, realistically, if Michigan State has a 2-possession lead, we haven't seen Michigan play from behind that much.
That's a good point. Yep. Okay.
Really 2 seasons, the 2 full seasons. So, and the only time they really did was against TCU, and they couldn't dig out of that hole, right? So, I mean, if Michigan goes down 21-6 again, that may well happen. Now if that happens, that means Michigan State's hitting explosives, which would be something that would surprise me, but it could happen.
Yeah.
Or, weird things have happened. Weird things would happen, kicking game, special teams, things like that. I would also be equally surprised if Michigan State came out of a game with a decided special teams advantage. But things have certainly happened in this rivalry that need no discussion. So it would probably have to be at least a couple possession lead. The vibes have to be good because it can't. In 2017, I remember Michigan had like a 2014 lead against Ohio State and wound up losing by like 13. It's like,
gotcha,
because they weren't moving the ball and you could kind of tell the dam was going to break unless they got a turnover. I think it would probably be a similar scenario in which you'd have to have something that's really working, whether it's in the run game, the pass game, or the defense is just turning them over left and right.
So before this game kicks off on Saturday on FanDuel, I'm going to make my annual all my nightmares are coming true bet, which will include, Michigan covering the spread. It'll include a few other props. And one prop that I'm wondering where I should put my money to is, do I want to bet money on Blake Corum 3+ touchdowns or JJ McCarthy 4+ touchdowns? Because I got a feeling one or the other is going to start their Heisman campaign, or at least they're going to attempt to start their Heisman campaign in this game. What do you think is a better bet? Blake Corum 3+ touchdowns or JJ McCarthy 4+ touchdowns? I'm not saying that's likely to happen, but again, this is my all my nightmares are coming true bet. I want to preface it with that. If I have to watch my nightmares unfold, Chase, I want to be paid for it. That's the reasoning behind this. I don't want it to happen.
Yeah, I'd go with Blake Corum, just because the number of JJ McCarthy 4+ touchdown passing games is low. One or two, maybe.
It's not right if that.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, I would go Corum just because he's used so much, especially down on the goal line. The guy who's kind of Michigan's moose back hasn't been playing as much. I think he's got a dinged up hand, so they use Corum a lot in that regard. The offense still runs through him. I'd probably hit the Corum one. And it's interesting. I've seen discourse on, I think, two different things that worth mention real quick. And the first is, Michigan's going to leave in their people and run up the score. It's possible, but I mean, the starters have not played a fourth quarter so far this year. I think Corum has 4 carries in the fourth quarter, and it was against Rutgers.
Interesting. Okay.
The times where Harbaugh has really run up the score, on teams, 2016 Rutgers when he got in a very public dispute with Chris Ash over recruiting, which was very funny. 2016 against DJ Durkin, I think that was 59-3 because of rumored malfeasance and Durkin basically not game planning for Ohio State the year before because he already had accepted the Maryland job.
Gotcha.
And then left the starters in late against Michigan State in 2019. After there was a lot of hijinks that game with taunting on the sideline that Michigan did, a retaliatory cheap shot by Jake Panashuk, and then they ran a kind of a trick play after that. I would not be surprised if things go the way that Michigan wants them to. I don't think Corum's going to be playing a whole lot in the fourth quarter, which may constrain that third touchdown a bit, but I would still probably go with Corum. And then the second thing is there's just kind of been a discourse of, well, you need to, why don't we fire somebody, fire Ross Ells, fire Harlan Barnett at this point? What are you doing? What does that mean in principle? Right. So you're mad and you want Ross Ells fired. I get it, but who are you replacing him with? Is a grad assistant? Right. I don't know if that's what you want. Well, we need to fire Harlan Barnett and put in who? I understand the frustration. Believe me, I do, but I don't think that there's a fix this season, and continuity, and discretion is the better part of valor there. So
I'm right with you as well, because I want Ross Ells on the next rocket to the moon. I can't say that, hey, he needs to be fired right now. And I know that goes against what a lot of State fans are saying, because just like you said, who's going to replace him? And also, haven't these kids gone through enough with their head coach getting axed, and then all the drama the last few weeks? The last thing I want to put on these kids now is another seismic shift of replacing the coach. Look, is he a good coach? No, of course he's not. But he is still a figure in these kids' lives, and then you just take him away in the middle of the season. Hey, what if, God forbid, they actually like him for the person he is? I mean, I'm sorry, but this is the point in the season where we're at right now, where even that is something you might want to keep around here in East Lansing. I mean, that's how sad times are, where we're, maybe just keeping guys around because, hey, they're good people to have in a locker room. But whatever. It's Chase, would you look at that? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Before we get out of here, do we want to touch on Paul's question?
I was just going to say another question just came across the feed here. Wow, would you look at that, Chase? And he writes, is the inclination to be a Michigan fan more nature or more nurture? In other words, is it a failing of parenting or some other environmental factor like a blow to the head as a young child? Or is it more of a genetic abnormality such as narcissistic personality disorder, but on the scale of an entire fan base? Wow, that's a good X's and O's question right there. Let's break this down, Chase.
So my peace offering is behind me. That's Chrysler Center. My junior year, Michigan played Michigan State in the basketball game early 2019. It was the first of 3 matchups, all of which Michigan lost. So I do get to be reminded of that every day. But you can see if you zoom in, there's me and a couple of my friends in the student section with a banana costume on, in which a picture of me went semi-viral wearing a banana costume, eating a banana in the dining hall after the loss. So, the rivalry is very much alive. I can't speak for other people. I know for me, I think it kind of depends on your familial particularities. So my grandfather went to Michigan, was very much raised kind of in that environment of being a Michigan fan. But on my paternal side, almost everybody, I would think 3 of my uncles and 2 of my aunts, they all went to Michigan State.
Gotcha.
And so it like a lot of families, I think there's a split there. I do think as far as the element of the fan base, there's a lot made of, and this is really only talking about the people who went to both schools, like denigrating the academics or whatever, because I think we're truly lucky in that, like, we do have 2 world-class universities in the state. And I mean, yes, like, I know Michigan's acceptance rate is like 18% and Michigan State's is like 70 something or whatever. But like, I think there's a broader context there in a way that is actually deleterious for the rivalry, because Michigan takes a lot more out of state kids than Michigan State does. And that is harmful, I think, to the rivalry, because you go to Michigan State, they get it. Like they understand that rivalry. And if you go to Michigan, the kids who are from Michigan, which, me and quite a few others, they get it. But, you don't have that kind of full buy-in. And I think it's to the detriment. Now, Paul, as for the narcissistic personality disorder, I have this.
Here we go.
This is especially for Paul. I don't pull this out often, but I do sometimes. The arrogant Michigan alumni shirt. That's my contribution for the rivalry week. It is a thing. Like, and I think you see it in the fight song, the leaders and best, things like that. Like, there is that attitude, and it's not good because, sometimes it's good and it's very funny and things like that. But I get it. Like, I get why people hate us. I get it. It makes sense. You can't have this self-aggrandizing, kind of entire ethos and then not get have people relish when you really step in it, which we do pretty often.
Sure.
But I mean, it's they're 2 great schools. It's a great rivalry. I think it's criminally underappreciated nationally as far as what this rivalry is and what it means. Just because, I mean, Michigan, Ohio State, that's a great rivalry. And I've always said, and people from my parents' generation would not agree with me, but I guarantee you, if you're a Michigan fan, Michigan alum of my generation, you do. You want to beat Ohio State more because of the stakes and what that means, but you hate losing to Michigan State more. Yeah. And because it you live it every day. This rivalry, I think there's so much more. It's not just, Michigan was good in the late 60s and so was Michigan State, and now we have a rivalry 70 years later. This is existential, where Michigan tried to kill Michigan State in the cradle and as an institution, and then tried to stop them from joining the Big Ten. And then you have the 1973 vote and all of the alleged things that happened with that and everything. So it's like, it's much more existential, and that's what makes it a great rivalry, because it truly matters. And if you're in the state, you live it every day, and that's what makes it so fun. So it's a great time. It's a fun week every week. It's certainly been more fun for me personally this past year than in other years, because I've certainly been on the other side of just kind of slow walking to your own execution. But it's the nature of the thing, and it's a fun week, and it'll be hopefully a good environment on Saturday. I also think, too, so much of the rhetoric around this on the internet goes out the window when you go to a tailgate in Ann Arbor or in of course. And it's everybody intermingling. It's great. And that's good. and that's what it's supposed to be, because this is a game and it's supposed to be fun. But I'm looking forward to it. Certainly I'll be there. And I'm imagining I'll probably have a more pleasant time than me sleeping in my car in the parking garage in over there, and I think Grand River after the 21 game, which was certainly a low point. So it ebbs and it flows, but it'll be a good time.
You got to get broken down to build yourself up.
Indeed.
No, you're bang on with the tailgate. So like, there's only one instance I can remember where a guy was being a little belligerent, but he was roughly 35 beers deep, I think. So it's like, we all have bad days, but no, for the most part, like
that'll happen.
Yeah, hoops amongst us. So it's normally a pleasant experience. Like, look, no one's in their backyard practicing how to throw a battery right now. Actually, like that's not actually a thing that's happening, regardless of how many times people want to scream it. But yeah, no, this is great. And like Paul's got a great question there. I would just love to pile on with the trash talk. And like, look, I've trash talked about Michigan during horrible weeks, like during really bad MSU rivalry weeks. But like, dude, my soul is at the 50-yard line of SHI Stadium. I've got nothing this week, man. I bleed green. I love these guys. I will watch every game, every play, but like I just my balloon popped last Saturday, man. I got nothing to say as far as like trash talk goes. And I feel like I'm letting people down because that's what I'm known for time to time again here, but I got nothing.
It's one of those things where you can't only be a fan when it's fun, right? So, I mean,
yeah. Oh no.
I remember. Oh God, I think the discourse around one of Paul's columns about the betting line before the 2020 game, in which Michigan was like 24-point favorites and won.
Yeah.
It was hilarious because everybody in the Michigan sphere was just so wrong. It's like stuff does happen and it's fun, and that's why you watch, because when things do happen, you want to be there and you want to be a part of it. And they're your guys, and you're right. And you ride for your guys, whether it's, a 3-9 season or an 11-2 season. And it's fun. You enjoy it, and you keep it in perspective and have a good time.
And we're here through the thick and the thin. Chase, this is awesome. Great shirt. I've never seen that shirt. That's a fantastic shirt. For those listening on the podcast, he already said it, but it just says Arrogant Michigan Alumni, which, wow, do they sell at the end then? Where's that sold at?
I'd never seen it before, but it was, just a guy who had a tent out outside of the Union on State Street in like week 1. And I was walking and I saw it and I was like, I've never seen that before. And paid entirely too much for it. And now I have a screen printed shirt that'll fall apart in about 2 washes, but I'll try to get my money's worth out of it.
Hey, it is what it is. No, I got to get like an MSU version of that. I don't know it wouldn't be arrogant. What would it be like? I don't know, degenerate MSU alumni, or I don't know, something along the lines of that. But whatever. Once someone makes that shirt, just send me the information and I'll send you the money ASAP. But no, Chase, this is great. We'll touch base next week if I'm still here, if I'm still not just a complete and utter husk of a man. But hey, until then, love every single one of you, even you, Chase, over there in Ann Arbor. That's right. But until next time, gang, hey, enjoy the rest of your day. Go Green.